Thank you, everyone who is joining us. We will go ahead and get started in about 5 minutes, just giving people some time to shuffle in on this Tuesday morning. So thank you so much, and we will see you all very, very soon. Thank you to those that are joining us live on Twitter, Facebook. We are very excited to share this event with you, so we will see you all in just about 5 minutes. Those of you that are just joining us, if you have any questions for our founder, you can feel free to pop those in the Q&A box. And those of you that are joining us across all social media channels and here with us on Zoom, if you please just share with us where you're joining us from and what grades you teach. For those of you that are just now joining us, please share with us where you're joining us from in the chat, and we will get started in just a few more minutes, just giving everyone a little bit of time to usher in for today's session. We are so excited to share this with you, and we'll see you guys soon. Those that are joining us live on our social channels, please also share with us where you're joining us from and what grade levels you teach. Right, and we will get started in just about 1 minute here, kicking off our 2021 live coding class with our founder. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. If you haven't done so, please tell us where you're joining us from and what grade levels you teach in the chat. And we are ready to kick off today's event. So first, today is the 2021 Hour of Code webinar series. This is part 2, well, really part 3 in our series for the CSED Hour of Code 2021. So today you are joining us for a live webinar with Learning to Code with our CodeMonkey founder. Today we will be meeting the founder in just a few minutes. So this is obviously our favorite event of the entire year, the CSED week and the Hour of Code. We have been part of this event for 7 years. And the CodeMonkey team wants to thank you so much for joining us with all of your students and teachers who are joining us for the webinar, both here on Zoom and across the social media channels, and those that will be catching us later. We know that there are a million choices that you could choose during this Hour of Code week, CSED week, and we thank you that you're taking the time to spend it with us. If you're catching this at a later date, you're watching the recording later, we also want to thank you so much for spending your time with us. And we are excited to share this year's Hour of Code, and we have some special announcements at the end that we'll share with you as well. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels. We are streaming to all of those social media channels today. And be sure to also catch us on LinkedIn as well. During today's webinar, you can also tweet at us using the hashtag CMHOC, which is down here in the right-hand corner. And my team is also here to answer any questions that you may have. And if you have any questions for the founder, please pop those if you're joining us on Zoom in the Q&A box or anywhere else in the chat box. And we'll save those during our live Q&A session here at the end. So without further ado, let's get ready to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. So we always like to share first just a little bit about our story and kind of how we got started. So in 2014, CodeMonkey's co-founder and CEO, Jonathan Schor, launched CodeMonkey after working with students of younger ages and different ability levels, and just seeing that they really grasped the concepts of coding much more when it was presented in a fun and gamified way. And so that's how CodeMonkey was born. Today, CodeMonkey is a leading fun and intuitive curriculum where students learn to code in many real programming language, from block-based to text-based to full Python. So we really hope that you give us a chance and spend your time coding with us during this Hour of Code week. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our team. That's always an important part of this, is so that you can meet us as well. My name is Lena Saleh. I'm the Professional Development and Sales Manager here at CodeMonkey. I've been at CodeMonkey for about 3 years now, and I was a former teacher as well. So we also have a couple of other panelists joining us today. We have Boaz, and Boaz is our COO, which is our Chief Operating Officer, and he also does all of our marketing for CodeMonkey. That means anything you see on social media, any blogs, the web pages that you see, all of those things are done by Boaz and his team. We also have Brett. He is our VP of US Sales. That means that how your teachers are accessing CodeMonkey beyond the Hour of Code, he works with myself and our other team to make sure that everyone is prepared for computer science. And then we also have Maya. She is our Customer Success Manager, and a Customer Success Manager makes sure that our teachers have success using the platform. And so that's what our team does all together for you. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our founder and CEO of today's event and our superstar, and that is Jonathan Schor. So I'm going to let him take over.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, great. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's my favorite session of the year. And thank you all for participating. Yeah, so just very briefly, myself, my name is Jonathan Schor. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of CodeMonkey. We started the company officially almost 8 years ago, but I've been teaching kids to code since the year 2001. So that's 20 years from, it's been 20 years now. And I've been coding myself since a very young age. I think since I was 8. I will talk about that in later slides. So I've been coding for more than 30 years and teaching kids to code for 20 years. And I'm combining those two passions in CodeMonkey since 2013.
And we're very thankful that you have put together this. So we're excited to do a Q&A with Jonathan and learn a little bit more about his story. And then we're going to kick it off doing a live coding class where you get to learn from him himself. So we're really excited about that. So let's talk about our outline today. So we're going to do an intro, just discussing a little bit about CodeMonkey, learning a little bit about Jonathan. He shared a little bit about himself already, but we're going to dive just a little bit deeper. How CodeMonkey got started, and then he's going to lead a coding class with you all, walking you through our coding adventure course. And then at the end, we will save time for Q&A from you, the teachers and students. So be sure to save those questions and pop those in the chat box. We're really excited for that. All right, so now it's time to kick off our interview and learn a little bit more about Jonathan. So Jonathan, tell us a little bit about, so you are the CEO and we know that you co-founded CodeMonkey, but can you tell us a little bit about what you do at CodeMonkey?
Yeah, so I'll try to explain. Well, when we started CodeMonkey, like I brought my software development experience and coding education experience to sort of create the vision for CodeMonkey and the product. And then with the other co-founder, my young brother Ido, the CTO, we created together the first course, which is now called Coding Adventure. And that's also the course that we're going to use today. So that was, writing the first inspiration and vision and creating the first course, the course that brought us our initial success and fame, and started the CodeMonkey brand, Coding Adventure. What I do today is quite different as the company grew. Unfortunately, I don't get to spend any time at all coding, at least not coding like part of the product. The only time I get to code is when I try new CodeMonkey courses. Then I type some codes to go through the courses, like a CodeMonkey student or teacher. And also, I don't get to participate as much as I used to in creating the courses, because now we have pedagogy experts and product managers and developers. So I unfortunately, well, it's not only bad, but I focus more on the business side today and on management and on planning the strategy for CodeMonkey. So deciding which markets to focus on, which directions to expand the products to, building the team, creating partnerships with other education companies around the globe, and so on.
So it sounds like there's quite a lot involved with being the CEO of a company. And I think that obviously Jonathan just talked about what does a CEO do. So he does the hard part, the hard business part of making those hard decisions about how to bring coding to you all and making sure that the courses that we have are aligning and meeting all of your needs. So he's a very busy person. Doesn't get to have as much fun coding the product. Although I will tell you, he's always very, very excited when we launch new courses and he gets the chance to play them just like you all.
That's true.
So Jonathan, if you were not, so you are an entrepreneur, somebody who started your own business alongside Ido, which will also be teaching a coding class tomorrow. What career path would you have followed if you weren't an entrepreneur or if you didn't start CodeMonkey?
So I actually started CodeMonkey twice. I started once in 2007 and failed miserably, and then I started again in 2013. So I guess I would repeatedly try until I finally get it done. But in an alternate universe where I'm not starting CodeMonkey, I would probably start some other stuff. So I had other education ventures and business ventures before CodeMonkey, and between the two attempts, the failed attempt and the successful attempt. So definitely would be an entrepreneur. If I couldn't be an entrepreneur, then probably I would just focus on teaching. Like I would probably continue teaching part-time and working with kids, and then coding for a living the rest of my time, probably.
Sounds like you have quite a passion for not only starting businesses, but also teaching. So it makes sense why CodeMonkey is the product that you went with. So what was it? This is not a question that we had originally asked, but since he mentioned this, what was it like when you did have a failed attempt at starting CodeMonkey at your first go around?
It was very confusing because I knew we had a good product, a good idea, because I did teach kids to code using that concept that we created for years, and I saw that it was working very well, but I couldn't find a way to sort of scale, like bring that idea to as a product to students beyond the students in my classes. So it was pretty frustrating and confusing to know that you have something good, but you can't find a way to sort of get it out there. But I learned a valuable lesson for entrepreneurs, that sometimes you just have to wait for the right timing. And then, 8 years later, it was 8 years later, or 7 years later, 6 years later, is that teaching kids to code became sort of a trend, started getting more attention, and that was the right timing to start CodeMonkey, and that's when it finally worked.
Sounds like with a little bit of luck on your side and a lot of grit, so a lot of hard work, that sometimes, and failure. This is something we learned from our Women in STEM webinar yesterday, that sometimes we just have failure and we have to figure out what to do with that. So it sounds like you had a new approach and strategy coming back in from taking a step back.
Exactly.
So switching a little bit of gears here. So something that I think is important for students to understand. And so when we start to make the transition out of our regular classrooms and start thinking about the future, I think it's important for people to see for you specifically, what is something that you look for when you do hire a person to join CodeMonkey, or if you had another business venture?
That's a great question. And it also ties well to what CodeMonkey does as a curriculum. So really the main two qualities that I look for in a potential employee are problem-solving abilities and sort of being self-sufficient in learning new skills. In the current rapidly changing work environment, you cannot afford to hire a person just for their current set of skills, because the required skills change rapidly. If you look at, customer success, the tools that we use for customer success, or the tools that we use for marketing, and the tool that we're using, obviously, for developing the products and selling it, they change so quickly. That if you hire someone that doesn't have this ability to learn new tools on their own and just find ways to solve challenges creatively on their own, then they will become highly inefficient in the current environment pretty quickly.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have to be adaptable. So being able to know that things don't always go the way that they seem they're going to go. And then also having those problem-solving skill sets, which tie really perfectly with learning how to code, those same types of skill sets.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay, now, what was the first programming language that you learned? Earlier, you mentioned that you started learning to code at around the age of 8. So maybe you can share a bit with us about what was the first language that you learned?
So the language was called Logo, Logo. Yeah, that's a screenshot. So that's a programming language that was developed in MIT. I think in the late 70s. and the language was developed for the purpose of being a gateway language for children, for teaching kids to code or exposing kids to coding for the first time. So it's not a programming language that is used in real world scenarios, like for creating real software products. It was designed solely for teaching kids to code, as a first coding language for children. As you can see, it wasn't that exciting. Even when we use future, more modern versions of Logo in 2001, when I started teaching kids to code, you could mainly use this coding language to create those simple geometric shapes and drawings. But you have to remember that back then, sort of the bar for getting people excited from things happening on a screen was much lower. We didn't have smartphones. People hardly had their own computers with colorful displays. So even just drawing a shape like you see on the screen now often was enough to get kids excited in a coding class. Obviously, today we needed something far more engaging.
It looks very much like a old school paint.
Exactly. Not very exciting nowadays for nowadays students. Yeah.
So which of the CodeMonkey characters is your favorite?
So that's the turtle. And the reason for that is when using Logo, in the Logo programming language, sort of the object that you program, you code in order to create those drawings on the screen is they call it a turtle. In those old computers, it didn't look like a turtle, it just looked like a small triangle. But the concept is that you have a turtle with a pen attached to its tail, and then you code the turtle to move on the screen, and then the pen draws, leaves a mark, a line, and that's how you draw those shapes. So then we thought it would be funny around challenge 10, level 10 in CodeMonkey, I think that's when we introduced the turtle as a surprise, and the instruction says, "Oh my God, it's a turtle!" So that's sort of an internal joke.
Funny, there's all kinds of things that always have, there's little tidbits of things sprinkled throughout, right, that have ties to other things. I would say my favorite character, I love the penguin that you meet later on in Coding Adventure. I think he's super cute, with or without the bow tie. So that's one of my favorites. Since we are having an avatar competition where we're having students create their drawings and turning them into CodeMonkey characters, which avatar do you use?
So I use the cat, the ginger cat, because that was my first pet. We actually found him when he was very little, and his eyes were still shut, and we needed to let it drink milk substitute from those things that drops, the little drops. I don't know what you call it in English. So yeah, that was my first pet, was this type of cat. So that's
why the character was introduced?
No, I don't think so. At this point, I wasn't that involved in the day-to-day of choosing the avatars, but when I saw that it's an option now, that was an easy choice for me.
Makes sense. We also learned that Sonda also has one of our full stack developers also does cats, but that's because she likes to save the world and save cats. Okay, so now we are going to kick off doing our live coding lesson, and it's going to be led by Jonathan, which is going to be, we're really, really excited about. So let's start off with today. Jonathan is going to be doing Coding Adventure, and we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But let's just discuss a little bit about what is text-based coding.
Okay, so I'm not sharing my screen yet, right? So text-based coding. So it's funny. Text-based coding, it's what adults or in the software industry is just called coding. In the education industry, in computer science education for kids, you say text-based coding to distinguish between this regular classic way of coding and the block-based method of coding, which was introduced also by an MIT product in the 90s called Scratch. So you have those blocks that are very popular in the recent decades for introducing programmatic thinking to young students. So you actually sort of learn the logical elements of coding, and you build algorithm programs without typing any text-based code yourself. And on CodeMonkey, on our first coding adventure, the one that we're going to try today, what was different about it is that it was the only course that introduced coding to young learners through text-based coding from the get-go. So instead of starting with block-based coding and then gradually transitioning into text-based, we came up with all kind of tricks and technologies that made text-based coding easy enough for kids. And we actually think that while doing that, we've actually created a more engaging user experience for children, because we think that the fact that they're actually typing codes like real adult coders from the get-go actually adds to the excitement for them, and also teaches them sort of a more advanced skill earlier.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of our teachers also express that they like that the students are learning real text-based code from a much younger age. It gives them the chance to kind of have that exposure, and then also to really get the chance to really understand the concepts. I think block-based can be a bit tricky to really identify that, but here you can see the step-by-step that's created from that. And so we do use a language which Jonathan talked about, is CoffeeScript. And so do you want to talk a bit about CoffeeScript?
I can mention like the brief history. So JavaScript became the most useful programming language sort of by chance. It was never designed to be so widely used, but since JavaScript was a language that created just for adding some like capabilities to websites. In the beginning, websites were just static pictures and text and links, and then JavaScript came along to add some things that's just very little tasks. So when you type in a password or your email address on a website, the website can verify that the email address is a valid email address, things like that. Then it became super popular because you had browsers on all devices, and then JavaScript became the only language that is supported by all the devices in the world, even mobile phone like smartphones. But it's really like JavaScript is not very user friendly. So for the developer, it's not an elegant language. So CoffeeScript came to fix that, and it created sort of a more coder friendly version of JavaScript. When we started CodeMonkey, CoffeeScript was trending. We thought it's a good gateway language because it's very user friendly. It looks almost like plain English. And it's as useful as JavaScript because CoffeeScript actually translates to JavaScript when you run it. So it was both very useful and very easy to use and teach.
And just so anyone's wondering, Java is also a type of coffee, right? So Java coffee. So they kind of go together. So if you ever wonder, these are real languages. So now we're going to dive into what is Coding Adventure, the course that we're going to be using. So can you tell us a little bit about what Coding Adventure is?
So Coding Adventure, like I said, that was our first course. I think for 2 years, that was our only course. And that was the course introducing text-based coding using CoffeeScript to children through a game where you need to program a monkey to collect all the bananas on the screen in order to move to the next level.
So we're going to get the chance to do that. And so we talked a bit already why Coding Adventure was created so that students could have a better understanding of the concepts rather than learning in, as Jonathan discussed, JavaScript, which can be quite tricky, especially for younger students to code. So that is how Coding Adventure was born. And if you notice here on this specific challenge that we have here, which we won't go that far into this specific challenge, but you'll notice here, it looks a little bit like something that we learned about before, a little bit like Logo, where the turtle is kind of dragging here. So just kind of noticing those subtle hints throughout the platform as well. Secrets that you probably didn't know before. All right, so now Jonathan is going to take over and he is going to do our lesson on how to code with Coding Adventure.
All right, so I'll share my screen. my browser's window. Can you see my browser window?
Yep, we can see it.
All right, perfect. So what I did, I just Googled CodeMonkey hour of code, and then it had like multiple results because we have different hour of code courses. And each hour of code course is actually sort of a sample of a full course that we have, a sample that is free, where you don't even need to log in order to start playing it. You don't even need to create a free account, a trial account. You can just click start playing, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm clicking start playing, and I'm going to start the coding adventure hour of code course. We have a little intro. So, oh no, we must get our bananas back. Press run to get the monkey moving. So that's a little short instruction that we get at the beginning of each level, each challenge. So I'm going to press run and see what happens. Oh, that was easy. So there was only one banana. We got it. So we solved the challenge, and we're moving to the next one. So those first levels are just introducing the platform. This is why we didn't have to type any code. The code was already there. We're just introduced to the concept of clicking run and then seeing the monkey executing the code. Now, can you fix the code on the right? It should make the monkey catch the banana. So now it's a bit more complex.
And before Jonathan, sorry, yeah, turn that down a little bit. We love those sounds, but it's hard when we're sharing that with others.
So background sounds off. Okay. So let's see now. So we have step 10 here as the initial code, and if I'm going to click run, let's see what happened. Before I start changing the code, I always like to run it as is first to see what the problem is, if there is a problem. Let's see. So I'm clicking run. The monkey takes 10 steps, and it's not enough. So I'm getting a hint. Use step 15 instead of step 10. So let's try that. Keep trying. So the keyboard animation here is a hint to what I need to change. So I'm going to delete 0 and type 5 instead. I have now step 15 on my line of code instead of step 10. Step 10, I'm clicking run. Now the monkey goes all the way to the banana. That was pretty good. Now let's learn some new tricks. Next challenge. You can use the ruler to measure distances. So again, the first few challenges are really just teaching us how to use the code, the sort of the mechanics of coding adventure, the different tools. We're not getting into any real coding concepts yet. So the ruler here is a very useful tool. I pick it up, I click on the monkey, I click on the banana, and it tells me the distance between the monkey and the banana. Step 12, I hope I did that right. So now I'm gonna delete 0 and type 12. And let's see if that was accurate. No, that was not enough. Let's see. I didn't do it right. I'll remeasure. Click the monkey. Click the banana. Oh, it's 20. Okay, so I'm gonna change 12. Delete it, type 20 instead. Hit the run button again. The monkey is executing the line of code. And we got all the bananas. Moving to the next challenge. Okay, so now we're learning about turning. You can make the monkey turn to the banana by using turn left or turn right. So we're learning a new command, a new function. And also, we're going to write our first program that is longer than one line. So we have 2 lines here, turn left and step 12. like I usually do. I'm going to click the run button before trying to edit the code, see what happens if I just run it as is. And I see the monkey turned the wrong way. I'm getting a hint, use turn right instead of turn left.
So why do you run the program before, even though the tip told us to step right or turn right? Why did you run the program first?
So we call that, I guess, debugging. That's a very important concept in coding. Like most of the time, coders, they don't write new code. They actually spend most of their time fixing or improving or adding capabilities to existing programs. So most of the time you have to deal with existing code. And for me and for many other developers, the best way to do that is to first run the code that you have that was written by other people or was written by you in the past, and now you have to revisit it. So first you run what you have to see what happens. For me, that's the easiest way of sort of understanding the situation, what needs to be changed or fixed. So like we did here, I realized we need to change turn left to turn right, and I don't have to type right letter by letter. You see I have those buttons on the bottom end of the screen. So that was one way for us to make text-based coding easier. So you don't have to actually type the text letter by letter. Often you can just use those buttons, and it types the commands and arguments for you. Turn right, step 12. I'm gonna click the run button. It worked. First code that's longer than one line. Great. Okay, it calls me to sign up because I use this as a guest. I'm going to skip this because I already have multiple CodeMonkey accounts, but when you're using this with your classroom as a teacher, I really encourage you to click the sign up button. It's going to allow you to set up a classroom for free of student. That way your students, their work is stored on our servers, and they can pick up from where they left the next time, or from home, or if you do another coding lesson, they don't have to start over, and it's free. And the teacher can also keep track of students' work and progress through the teacher dashboard once you sign up for a free CodeMonkey teacher account. I already have that, like I said. So I'm going to just skip this and continue coding as a guest. What happened? Okay. Click on the button below to enter code. Oh, so here I'm being introduced to what I just told you in the previous challenge and how you can use those buttons instead of typing. So in this challenge, I have to not just fix the existing lines of code, I have to add my own lines. So it has turn left, which is correct. But I need to make the monkey also step towards the banana after it turned towards the banana. And instead of typing letter by letter, I'm just going to click step. Then I'm going to click I'm going to type 12. The numbers you do have to type by yourself. So I type 12. Let's see. That's working. Yep.
What happens if you make a mistake with the spelling? Does it make a difference if I had a capital T instead of a lowercase t?
So definitely, and that's a frustrating part about text-based coding. That you have to be very accurate. Even a small spelling mistake, or even like you said, just using a capital T letter instead of a lowercase letter. Let's see. Let's try to change this to step with a capital S. So that's gonna break the program. Let's try and run it. Yeah, fixed line 2. I don't know what step is. So that's a thing about computers. You have to be very accurate with them. Like human being can sort of understand from context, even if you have a typo or even you don't use the correct word. But with code and with talking to computers, you really have got to have zero mistakes. You got to be very accurate, even to the point of not using capital letters when you're not supposed to.
That's something that you see common, or that programmers will see common when they're doing like sprints, which is a really long run of creating something to get some product piece or something program, that they'll have errors, right? The syntax is always the trickiest part. You spend a long time coding, and then it's pretty difficult, right, to find those syntax errors.
Exactly. And some of the technology we created in CodeMonkey was around making those error messages more clear. Because what you see here, like you type step, maybe you meant step, like those type of thing, like when you do on a Google search where you're searching for something and you had a typo and Google is suggesting the right term. So like real coding environments, they don't do that. They just tell you something is wrong. And something is wrong on line 12 and you have to figure it out on yourself. And on CodeMonkey, we put a lot of effort when building the platform so that the error messages will be more clear, more coder friendly. Okay, so we made it all the way to challenge. What is this one? Is this challenge 10?
Challenge 5.
Challenge 5, okay. So now we're solving a real problem. We need to get to the bananas, but we have this line of bushes, this fence blocking the way, and we have to walk around it. So I think like this is the first taste of what it means to sort of build an algorithm. So like we said, we need to be very accurate, and also with computers, with code, you also need to be very explicit. You can't just tell the computer, just go around the bushes. You have to use very simple, well-defined instruction and create a set of those instructions, sort of like creating a recipe. It needs to be 100% like well-defined so the computer knows exactly what to do. So we need to break down our plan of walking around the bushes into small pieces the computer can understand. So we have the beginning typed in for us. So the first thing we need to do is to turn left so that we don't face the bushes. We want to walk like around from the left side. So turn left. Step 5 will not get us far enough. Let's use the ruler. We want to get all the way sort of above the bushes. You need to be, the ruler is, try this again.
You'll notice you just have to click on the top of the monkey's head and you have to drag it. If you don't, then you won't get as accurate as a read.
Exactly. So I need to take 15 steps. All right. So let's do this. Step 15. Let's see what happens so far.
And what do you guys think after he runs step 15? What do you think is the next thing that we should do?
And there's a hint.
There is a hint that helps us. Yeah. Okay. So while you guys think about that, we're going to continue solving this together. So that hint told us that we need to turn right after.
Yeah, so I'm clicking the turn button instead of typing TURN and a space, and then I'm clicking right. Then I already measured this, so I know that this path here is also 15 steps, I think. So click step and type in 1, 5, 15, and I'm going to click the run button. Right, and I got 3 stars. Maybe now it's a good time in the next challenge to explain what is the meaning of the stars, the star score. Okay, we're going to have to start from scratch here. I trust you, young coder. Okay, so I have to go all the way to the banana here, and obviously I can't just do step 20 or wherever the distance is because the monkey can't swim. So I need to go around and use the bridge.
So I also noticed that this one didn't have any code in it before. Why is this one different?
Right. So this is something important to mention, mainly for the teachers. So we call those challenges assessment challenges. Once in every few challenges, we put in what we call an assessment challenge, and the purpose of the challenge is sort of to summarize everything that you've learned in the previous challenges and combine all of that new skills and knowledge into a solution of a single challenge. And the purpose is not only to recap, it's also to assess whether you actually learned what you were supposed to learn in the previous challenge, and you really understand it, and you know how to use what you've learned. So we start with a blank document of code in order to really make sure that you're not just sort of running and debugging, fixing, and somehow getting it solved. You're really creating the solution from scratch. When you're using the teacher dashboard, those assessment challenges are highlighted, so you can, if you want to make sure that the student really learned what they were supposed to learn, you can sort of just look at the score that they got for the assessment challenges. So here, let's see, to go around, distance here is like, what, 5, I think. Let's try this. And the other one is 20. So let's do this. I'm going to turn left. Step low. Okay. Step 5. I don't know why it created all those blank lines. Yeah, I had a cat stepping on my keyboard.
Try that orange ginger cat.
Yeah. Well, it can be that specific one. That one passed away years ago. So turn right. Let's try to walk all the way to the bridge. And turn right. And then I'm going to step to the bridge. 10 steps, and I'm going to step again from the bridge to the other side of the river. Then I'm going to turn right towards the banana. And step 5. Whoop, that's not. Okay, this is an example of a spelling mistake. So I'm going to try this one. I have step 5 on the last line. Didn't even get there because, okay, I didn't delete the step 20. It just fell in the water. Okay, so I'm going to delete the line from my previous false solution. I'm going to start by turning left before taking any steps. I'm going to fix this because I want to show something different now. Okay, turn left, step 5, step to the bridge, step down from the bridge. It went too far. Okay, it went like too far past the banana. So let's try and do this. Step 8. Okay, but I only got 2 stars for this solution. And it's telling me solve with 6 lines or fewer to get the 3rd star. So the thing about writing code, usually, it's not enough to write a piece of code that does what you needed it to do. In this case, get the monkey to the banana. You usually expected also to solve the solution in the most elegant way possible. And in our case, the most elegant way usually simply means with the fewer lines of code as possible. So I use 7 lines of code in order to get to the banana here. And it's telling me that there is a way to solve this with just 6 lines. 6 lines of code. And if I'll find that solution, I'll get the 3rd star. So anyone has an idea? How do I get rid of 1 line, or how can I combine 2 lines from my solution into just 1 line of code?
You guys can put that in the chat box for us while we're working through this together. So what would be a way that we could change this to make this to get a 3 star? Oh, someone said change it to step 18 instead of step 10 and step 8.
Accurate. That is accurate. Right. So I don't need, even though I'm stepping onto the bridge and then stepping down from the bridge, I can actually do both those. I can achieve both those like sub goals with just one line of code by combining 10 and 8 into step 18. 10 plus 8 in one line. So let's see. All right. Now I got that third star.
Okay, and now we're going to leave some time for Q&A. So I know we only got through a few challenges, but I hope you guys learned a little bit from Jonathan. Really quick though, before we, oh, you already stopped sharing.
Oh, sorry. Should I put it back on?
Yeah, can you put it back on? I want to ask a question really quick.
Share screen.
So while you guys we were working through these challenges and learning some things, Jonathan talked about syntaxing, making sure we have the right spelling. But one thing we didn't discuss is what is the difference between turn and step? So we noticed that there's like a difference, but what are those? So we see that they are step and turn, but what exactly are those things? What do they mean?
Between step and turn?
Mm-hmm. Are they commands? Are they functions? What are those?
Yeah, so actually it's a good question. There's a lot of confusion around the terminology, and the reason is that in different programming languages they use different terms for that. In CoffeeScript, which is actually a version of JavaScript, we actually don't call those elements commands, we call them function, because CoffeeScript is a functional language, so everything is a function. And functions always take arguments, like in math. Usually, like always, actually, commands they always take like input. We call the input arguments or parameters. So for the step function, the argument or the parameter would be a number, simply deciding the number of steps that you want to be taken. For turning, it doesn't have to be a number. This challenge introduces also the option of putting in a number as an argument for the turn function, which would be the number of degrees to turn. But what we've done so far, we use special arguments in the form of left and right. So those are just sort of like constants or sort of abbreviations for specific numbers. So left really just means 90 and right means -90. And that it's so you would get the same result for typing turn 90 or for typing turn left, but it would just make the code more elegant and more easy to write and more easy to read. That's very important, because like I said, coders spend a lot of time reading other coders' code. So when it says turn left, it's much easier to understand what the program means than if it said turn 90.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Can I stop now?
You can, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so now we are going to take some questions from our audience. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those into the chat box or into the Q&A, and that's including anyone who's joining us on any of the other social channels. So a couple questions that we did have is hold on, I just lost this, is what are the future plans of CodeMonkey?
That's a great question. So in terms of expanding the product, we are planning to add more coding courses for middle schools. We feel like that we have more for elementary schools than we have for middle schools, and we want to balance that out a little bit. So more coding courses for middle school will probably be the next coding courses. And we're planning also on adding computer science courses that are not coding courses. So if you look at the computer science curriculum that is being gradually adopted around the world in the United States, but in other countries as well, computer science is not only about coding. it's about other kind of digital skills and even soft skills like problem solving, collaboration, digital literacy, online safety, just understanding how computers work and the world works and the internet. So we're planning to add courses around those topics as well.
Great. This question says, how will CodeMonkey help in building ourselves?
How will CodeMonkey help in building ourselves, like as personalities? Oh, that's an excellent question. So it's the same as how coding helps, and you see that in many things. Like for example, like when you have your kids on a, I don't know, soccer, you put him on a soccer class, or like football or baseball. You don't necessarily aim for the child to become a professional athlete. But it's obvious that they're picking up many skills and personal qualities along the way that are transferable to other things, like persisting, collaborating, being creative, not giving up, and solving problems creatively and consistently. So I think those are just examples of the kind of personal qualities and traits that you can enhance while learning and practicing coding.
I think are really great skill sets that transfer exactly what you're saying beyond just life of being a programmer. So I think that those are important skills that can really transfer to anything, like being an athlete or anything at all. One question that we had here is, if you could, how can you encourage students of a young age to get into programming, or teachers to try it?
Yeah. So my personal belief on that, on getting anyone to do anything, not just students or teachers, also employees or partners or friends, family members, is really searching for their sort of inner natural motivations and then tying into that. So I don't know, if you have a kid that likes to play computer games, I would try to work from there, like saying, how would you like to try and create your own computer game or modify a computer game that you enjoy playing on your phone? And if the child is excited about that idea, then you go into, okay, do you know how games are designed and modified? That is done through code. How would you like to learn to code? And eventually, if you do well enough, you'll be able to create your own games or modify games that you already play.
Another question, I really like the tip of modifying too, because I think students will have to recognize someone else's code and try to interpret their code to make it their own. So I think that what you were mentioning earlier is programmers don't necessarily always create the code from scratch, but oftentimes they're modifying other people's code. So I think that's a good tip as well. Another question that students had is, do you have any thoughts on how students can become entrepreneurs at a young age? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Hard question.
Like, yeah, I think role models are 95% of any educational experience. So if they have people in their environment that serve as a positive role model for them, and they aspire to be a little bit like them, and if those people have entrepreneurial sort of mindset or way of living, then that's the best way. And a teacher can often be very entrepreneurial if they come up, let's say, with their own initiative for teaching stuff that are not in the mandatory curriculum, or teaching in different methods, or initiating some activities in the school. So yeah, the best way I think is to set a personal example.
I think that's great. Or finding mentors. I think mentors are really important. And I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of, there's even right now, like a lot of communities for students to have mentorship. And I would encourage both teachers and students to seek those opportunities, because lots of people like us in the industry want to give back. That's what we do. We're passionate about helping teachers and helping students. And I think that if you can find that, it's a good one. So our last question, since we're out of time here, is how has coding helped change your life?
Wow.
These are tough questions, aren't they?
I owe a lot to coding. But I don't know if I would go back to the early years of coding for myself. It was just a good way for me to find friends that were sort of on a similar mindset as I am, because I was a bit quiet, a bit shy as a child in elementary school. And once I got into this world of coding, it was a great way to find sort of like-minded friends. I guess my first friend, one of them was also a co-founder of CodeMonkey. We've actually been coding together since fourth grade or something like that. So it was really for me just sort of finding my sort of place in society, I guess, and finding friends and finding my career path.
I think that's important. I think it's finding something that you're passionate about is important, and it's okay if your passions change over time. And it sounds like even your transition yourself has changed from you were fully doing programming and teaching programming, and now you're kind of more in the business entrepreneurial role. So sometimes those things will change. It doesn't mean that you stop loving your first passion, but it might kind of change gears. So we're going to wrap that up with that last question. So thank you. And that question did come from Bhutan. So we've had people all over the world actually watching right now. So that's been really great. We want to thank Jonathan for spending time with us. He is in Israel at our corporate office. So it's quite late for him. So I'm sure he's ready to get home and see his family as well. So we thank him so much for leading this coding class and taking time out of his day to spend with you all. And we also want to thank all of you teachers and those that are following along during the Hour of Code. I think the most important thing to take away from the Hour of Code is just give it a try. This week is really meant to be an unintimidating way to try out computer science. So we hope that you check out some of the courses that we have, and that your students will also find their passion with computer science. We also have one more webinar tomorrow with Jonathan's brother, Ido, which you can see over his shoulder there. So he'll actually be leading a block-based coding class tomorrow with you all about our newest course, Block Jumper. We do have an avatar competition. So teachers, I encourage you to check out social media for that. And then we will have a couple of blog posts coming out about different jobs in CS that might surprise you, like sportscasters and different things that use computer science that might surprise you. And then also how to launch an Hour of Code event. So again, thank you all so much for spending time with us. Please tag us in all of the things that you're doing for Hour of Code. We love seeing what you're doing and representing us. And thank you for welcoming us into your classrooms. And until next time, remember to write code, catch bananas, save the world. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.